I never expected a billionaire to return home and shatter my world when he saw me with his daughter. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sunlight poured through the tall windows, casting stripes of gold on the floor. I heard laughter, sweet, innocent laughter. That was the sound of Emma, his daughter, my best friend. Her hair glowed like spun sugar, and her blue eyes sparkled with mischief. Little did I know, that moment would slip away like sand through my fingers. I was crouched on the floor, sharing a collection of colorful markers between us. My heart warmed as she concentrated, her little tongue peeking out of the corner of her mouth. In that confined space filled with glitter and dreams, I forgot the storm brewing outside. The faint sound of approaching footsteps turned my stomach. I glanced out the window, and my breath caught in my throat. The unmistakable silhouette of her father, Lucas Sterling, a billionaire whose mere mention sent waves of awe rippling through our town, came into view. He was a figure gilt in power and success, brimming with an energy I could almost feel radiating through the air. But I didn't feel awe, I felt dread. When he walked through that door, the room froze. The sunlight dimmed, and silence swelled around us. His eyes locked onto me, his expression twisting from confusion to betrayal in an instant. My heart raced like a wild thing, pounding against my ribcage. I could feel Emma draw back, sensing the tension swimming around us. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling, barely daring to break the charged air. I could hardly breathe. Everything crashed together, my feelings for Emma, the lies, the whisperings of trust and loyalty. How could I stand father and daughter together? I was just the girl from the wrong side of the tracks, trying to be a brightness in her life. I searched for words, any words to ease the storm building in Lucas' eyes, but they wouldn't come. I felt small, trapped in a moment that stretched infinitely. He took a step closer, hands clenched, jaw tight, the silence crackling like static. I braced myself. Would he yell? Would he shove me out and tell me to never come near his daughter again? I wanted to apologize, but how could I find my voice when everything was at stake? The unspoken bond we had built over laughter and cupcakes sat on the brink of collapsing. Just when I thought despair would consume me whole, Lucas blinked. It was a split second, but I saw something change. Was it vulnerability? Regret? Before I could grasp it, the door swung open again. This time, it wasn't just any noise, it was an explosion of chaos. "Lucas!" A sharp voice cut through like a knife, followed by hurried footsteps. "You need to see this." The world around us swirled into a whirlwind of confusion. My heart sank, and Emma's innocent gaze flitted back and forth between us, unsure of what to make of it all. What was happening? What had I stepped into? As Lucas turned away, his face shadowed with annoyance, a cold sense of fear crept up my spine. The air thickened, tension curling like smoke in the air. There was more going on here, mysteries lurking just beneath the surface, and I was about to be pulled deeper into something I couldn't possibly fathom. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood in the suffocating silence, feeling as if the very walls were closing in around me. Emma's hand slipped into mine, small and warm, grounding me as I fought the urge to flee. Her innocent trust fortified my resolve, but it also deepened the ache in my heart. This wasn't just about my feelings for her or the mess I had unwittingly walked into, it was about Lucas, the raging storm of emotions he embodied, and the unspoken fear that rippled beneath the surface. As much as his anger haunted me, I couldn't ignore the moment when I thought I had seen a glimmer of something softer lurking behind his fierce exterior. Was it despair? Why was it there? I longed to unravel the mystery, to offer comfort in a moment when everything felt so precarious. But the door slammed shut behind him, and I felt the tremors of uncertainty settle once more. "Emma, sweetie, can you go grab your coloring book?" I asked softly, wanting to redirect her attention, wanting her to escape from the tension that hung ghost-like in the air. She nodded, her eyes big and wide, darting toward the door before drifting back to me. There it was again, the vulnerability, the guilt. Did she sense that something was wrong? As she shuffled off, I took a moment to collect my thoughts, pushing down the whirlpool of emotions threatening to spill over. Lucas was not just the father of my best friend, he was a powerful enigma, and I was caught in a web I had never asked to enter. He could obliterate everything I had built with Emma with a single scornful look, yet there was a pain in his veneer that I desperately wanted to understand. That I snapped out of my reverie when Emma returned, her little face illuminated with enthusiasm as she bounced back into the room with her coloring book clutched to her chest. "Look, I made these pages just for us. You can use all the colors." She beamed, unfolding the pages and revealing her imaginative drawings. I managed a smile, but it felt strained. Setting aside the tangled emotions swirling within me, I focused on her, on the joy she radiated. With every stroke of the marker across the paper, each burst of laughter shared between us, a small flicker of hope ignited in my heart. Emma's world was so beautifully innocent, untouched by the lingering darkness that threatened to overwhelm us. I wished to protect that innocence, even if it meant suppressing my own anxieties. Minutes melted away as we colored, the sound of Emma's giggles lifting the oppressive weight of uncertainty. But just as I began to relax, the door swung open again. This time, Lucas entered, his presence seeming to suck the joy from the room. The tension reformed like a thick fog, and I could feel Emma instinctively clinging to me. Lucas's eyes darted between us, the flickering emotions painting a portrait of a father trying to decipher the intricacies of his daughter's heart while grappling with how he felt about me. "Emma," he said, voice gruff yet delicate, "can you give us a moment?" The way he phrased his request wove a thread of protectiveness into the fabric of his tone. Emma's eyes widened, and she looked between us, her confusion evident. I wanted to reach out to her, to shield her from the storm brewing in her father's heart, but I felt stuck, sealed off by my own dread. "Okay," she finally replied, the lilt of uncertainty in her voice enough to prick my conscience. She retreated to her corner, and just like that, we were left alone with the weight of unspoken words. "Why?" Lucas asked, the single word carrying the weight of mountains. I fumbled, desperate to explain but unsure of how to convey my feelings without tearing the delicate fabric of their relationship. How could I articulate the sheer joy I derived from spending time with Emma without betraying the fact that I cared deeply for both of them? "This isn't about you," Lucas interrupted, his voice low and dangerous, a note of despair lacing the edges of his words. "What were you thinking? How could you do this?" I took in a shaky breath, ready to defend my intentions. "Lucas, I love Emma. She's my best friend. And I would never want to hurt either of you. Please understand." I could feel the weight of truth in my heart, but it felt hopelessly inadequate against the emotions swirling in his eyes. For a moment, his expression bristled with a cocktail of anger and something much deeper, fear, perhaps. "You can't just waltz into our lives and claim that," he exploded, visceral and raw. The sound ricocheted off the walls, and I recoiled, shocked. "Lucas!" I exclaimed, but my voice was small against the weight of his fury. "Trust is not something that applies to you," he boomed, closing the distance. "You don't realize what's at stake. This goes beyond Emma, beyond friendship." "What do you mean?" My voice faltered, catching on the sharp edges of his words. Before he could respond, the door burst open one last time, this time revealing a woman in a crisp suit, breathless and anxious. "Lucas, we need to talk. It's about the merger. Things are escalating quickly, and you need to know that." But I didn't process the rest. My heart raced too quickly, drowning out the chaos around me. With every new interruption, the shadows darkened around us. "Excuse me?" I whispered, fear prickling at my skin as Lucas's gaze flickered toward the newcomer. I'm sorry, I breathed, a sense of enormity settling upon me as I realized this was more than I had bargained for. As I took a step back, the walls of my world began to spin, and I feared for the innocence I had tried so desperately to protect. Lucas turned back to me, tension etched into his features. You need to leave now. My heart dropped. The words blasted through the air like shattering glass, jarring and sudden, a truth reminiscent of a painful goodbye. Would I ever find a way back into their lives, knowing the storm was brewing, and the stakes were higher than I could have possibly imagined? The weight of Lucas's command echoed in the back of my mind as I stood rooted to the floor, confusion and hurt washing over me. You need to leave now. The finality of his words reverberated like a death knell, but what hurt even more was the look on Emma's face, her wide eyes, shimmering with worry that I could feel my heart cracking, a soundless fracture reverberating deep within me. The desire to console her, to shield her from this unwarranted drama clashed with the impulse to run, to escape before the situation spiraled any further. All I could think about was her innocence, the vibrant spark in her that illuminated the room, and how swiftly it could be dimmed by the reality of her father's stormy soul. Lucas, please, I murmured, softer now, pleading. Tears stung my eyes as I reached for his arm, desperate to connect, to make him see that I only wanted to help, not to hurt. I never meant to intrude. I care for Emma and for you, too, in our own complicated way. He stepped back, like my words were a physical blow, his posture rigid, his jaw clenched tight. Complicated? You have no idea what complicated is, he spat back, frustration mingling with anguish. I saw his hands tremble slightly, and in that split second, I no longer recognized the man who had stormed into my life as an antagonist. Suddenly, the woman from earlier broke back into the room, her urgency palpable. Lucas, this isn't the time. You need to prioritize the business. We have a meeting. I don't care about that right now. Lucas snapped, his eyes never leaving mine. I have no time for distractions. But the moment lingered, alive and charged, and I could feel the tremors of unresolved emotions being interrupted yet again. The woman exchanged worried glances with me, and though her expression betrayed disbelief, she slowly retreated a few steps, reconsidering her approach. I'll give you a moment, she said softly before backing out of the room, closing the door gently behind her, as if trying to shield us from the world outside. Time stretched as Lucas and I faced each other in the strained silence, the unresolved tension like a living entity between us. I desperately searched his eyes for understanding but found only turmoil reflected back. What if I want to know what complicated means? I asked softly, almost breathless. I mean, what if, just maybe, we could reach understanding? I took a tentative step closer, unwilling to surrender to despair even as uncertainty loomed. But Lucas remained unmoved, a fortress built from his fear and hurt. You don't know anything about me, he breathed, voice strained, like admitting vulnerability would break him. Then tell me, I urged, my mind racing with possibilities, my heart yearning for a connection that felt out of reach. Help me to understand. To my surprise, the fire in his eyes dimmed slightly, allowing a flicker of his vulnerabilities to shine through. You really want to know? He chuckled bitterly, shaking his head in disbelief. This isn't a fairy tale. My life is its chaos, and you're right in the middle of it. I'm scared of losing what little I have left. I felt my heart ache with empathy as I caught the momentary crack in his armor. The realization that the anger masking his pain was aimed at me, a surrogate for the way he felt about what life had taken from him. Lucas, what do you fear losing? I probed gently. His gaze faltered, a storm of emotions flickering across his face. Everyone, he whispered. Emma, my mother, me. His voice trailed off, and realization swept over him as if he had just verbalized an unthinkable truth. I know pain, I replied, finding strength in my own vulnerability. I know what it means to fight for the ones you love. I feel that with you and Emma. I don't want to be a threat. I want to be a safety net for both of you. Lucas's exterior cracked further, but the uncertainty hung thick in the air. Just as it seemed he might lower his guard, we heard the unmistakable sound of Emma's footsteps scurrying outside the door, her small voice calling, "Are you guys okay in there?" The impending reality shattered whatever fragile moment we had reached. He straightened himself, tightening the walls once more. "I'm fine, Emma. Just stay right there," he replied, his voice slipping back into its guarded tone, but Emma's response struck like a knife. "I don't believe you," she said. The honesty of her words echoed in the room, binding us all in a moment of shared concern and fear. "Please," I called out to her, my heart racing. "Just give us a moment." But before she could respond, I noticed Lucas's face pale as he glanced toward the door, suddenly flooded with concern. "Emma, go wait for me in the living room," he instructed, his voice firm yet oddly gentle. I could sense the storm building again, tangible and stormy. "Emma, sweetie, it's okay," I gently coaxed. "Daddy just wants to talk. I'll be right here." "Promise?" she asked, her voice small. "Promise," I vowed, feeling the weight of those words deepen in my belly as I turned my gaze back to Lucas. As the sounds of her footsteps faded down the hallway, an unsteady silence enveloped us. Lucas's face hardened into a mask of determination. "You don't belong here," he said, a mixture of heartache and authority flooding his tone. "You need to understand that I will do everything to protect Emma, even from you." Each word stung, piercing through the slender threads of hope I had been weaving. Just when I thought we had turned a corner, the pathway back to understanding was being slashed apart. This wasn't just about Emma or me or Lucas. Somewhere amidst the chaos lay an untold story waiting to surface, a truth binding us all together, even if the specters of the past threatened to tear us apart. And as I stood there, grappling with the raw wound that had just been opened, I thought I understood our fates were intricately intertwined, yet the darkness lurking around the corner threatened to swallow us whole. How could I navigate this labyrinth when the exit felt as distant as the stars? With one last desperate gaze into Lucas's eyes, I felt something shift unbidden between us, a flicker of hope mingled with dread, and a realization burned clear. The real question was, when the storm did break, would there be anything left to salvage? The air hung thick with unspoken fears as I stood frozen, caught in the tension between aspiration and despair. Lucas's words echoed in my mind, a mantra of dismissal that churned my insides. "You need to understand that I will do everything to protect Emma, even from you." It was as if he had drawn an invisible line in the sand, one I couldn't dare to cross, yet I felt tethered to both him and Emma. Each passing second felt like a lifetime as I wrestled with the turmoil rising within. I recalled the carefree laughter that danced through the hallways of their home, the warmth that enveloped me whenever Emma smiled. Her innocence was a stark contrast to the churning seas of adult chaos that surrounded her, and I was not ready to let that slip away. "Lucas," I began, trying to anchor his furious gaze, "I'm not a threat. I want to be part of her life in a positive way, to support you both. Can you not see I don't need your kind of help?" He interrupted abruptly, his voice shaking with emotion. "I can handle it. I have to handle it." The pain that bled from his words settled heavily between us like a tangible weight, making every breath a struggle that I took a step back, denouncing despair. "And what if you can't? What if the weight becomes too much? You're human, Lucas. You can't carry this alone." My voice trembled slightly, amplifying the urgency in my plea. There was a fissure in his defenses, but it was quickly covered by the winds of stubbornness. "Don't you get it? My life doesn't allow for help, not anymore." Not after he cut himself off, the look in his eyes terrifying me, suggesting depths I had not even imagined. With every beat of my heart, the realization sank deeper. Lucas carried burdens I had yet to grasp, and perhaps I was meant to weather this storm standing firm at his side. The moment stretched taut, desperation clinging to the air, until a soft knock on the door startled us both. Emma's voice, small and wavering, drifted through. "Daddy. Can I come in now?" "Emma." Lucas hesitated, glancing briefly at me, uncertainty flickering across his features. The wall he had built began to tremble, and I felt a pang of regret for pushing him too hard. "Emma, sweetheart," I offered gently, hoping to reassure. We're just having a grown-up conversation. Why don't you go find something to do? Maybe read your new book. Isn't grown-up talk supposed to be boring? She replied, and we both chuckled lightly at the innocence that disrupted the palpable tension. Boring and sometimes sad, Lucas finally said, his voice quaking with a rare softness. But it will be over soon, I promise. The warmth in my chest flickered, that winding thread binding us a little tighter. We'll finish soon, I swear, I assured, and I meant it. I craved closure, for both of us. I'm scared. Emma finally revealed, her voice breaking just enough to make my heart ache. Sweetheart, you don't have to be, Lucas replied, his frustration dissolving into the softness of his fatherly concern. We're here for you. You're safe. Then why is your face all scrunched up? She pressed, her childlike honesty cutting through the complexity of our adult anxieties. A moment of silence passed, heavy with the burden of truth that still loomed above us like an unapproachable cloud. This was not just our narrative, it was hers, fragile and still unfolding. Lucas sighed, a mix of defeat and love chasing across his features. It's just. I worry, that's all. Grown-ups have a lot on their plates, but we're working on it. I'll always be here for you. I know, Daddy. Emma's sweetness held a wisdom beyond her years, one that made my heart swell painfully. Why don't we go get some ice cream? I offered, breaking the silence and trying to shift the weight from our shoulders, hoping to redirect the atmosphere. You know, just a little treat to brighten the mood. The sound of excitement fluttered back into her voice as she agreed, the hint of laughter returning as she asked if we could choose sprinkles on top. Sounds perfect. Lucas replied, his smile tentative but brightening with her enthusiasm. He cast a sideways glance at me, a silent thank you for making the concession to break the tension. But as we opened the door, the world outside became a cacophony of challenges, and a voice we had not anticipated called out to us. Lucas. The sudden intrusion froze us in our tracks. A woman stood there, elegantly composed, but the fury etched on her face was unmistakable. You need to come home now. It's urgent. The small victory we had clung to shattered in an instant, the sweet moment of levity and hope evaporating under the pressure of her demand. My heart dropped, instinctively sensing the storm that was about to roll in, dark and unrelenting. Who is that? Emma asked innocently, her eyes wide with curiosity. Lucas's face paled, and I felt an urge to shield Emma from the uncertainty that loomed, but there was no escaping it. Just someone from work, he replied, the edge of his voice betraying an unease that sent chills through me. As the woman stepped closer, her presence radiated authority, and with it came a wave of dread crashing down. We can't afford any delays, this has to be resolved now. Lucas glanced at me, a flicker of desperation and panic clouding his eyes, and in that instant, I understood, whatever storm loomed on the horizon was more significant than I had prepared for. We need to go, he whispered, an urgency threaded in his words, and as we ushered Emma towards the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was unraveling far faster than I could grasp. The balance between promise and peril hung in the air, pregnant with unspoken fears. I wanted to ensure we could navigate this storm together, yet an ominous certainty settled in my chest that this was just the beginning of the tempest threatening to tear us apart. As we stepped outside, shadows danced along the path we would follow, the thunder of impending revelations rumbling above, threatening to break us before there was a chance to mend. In that moment, I knew if we were to weather this together, we would need more than hope, and I had to trust that somewhere along this path, love would lead the way. The air outside felt charged, heavy with all the unsaid messages hanging between us as we walked in silence, Lucas's grip on Emma's small hand tightening with each step. I trailed behind, the weight of dread anchoring my feet, unwilling to let hope steer me forward fully. Can we get chocolate syrup too? Emma chirped, her voice a bright note trying to cut through the tension. Of course, sweetheart, Lucas replied, his eyes flickering between the road ahead and the woman who stood resolutely beside us. The contrast between the warmth of Emma's innocence and the storm brewing in Lucas's eyes tugged painfully at my heart. I'm serious, the woman interrupted, tilting her head slightly toward Lucas, her tone sharp as glass. This isn't game. You need to make a decision now, Lucas. You know what's at stake. What's at stake? What are you talking about? I interjected, my irritation flaring as I felt the familiar bond between Lucas and Emma start to shudder under the weight of uncertainty. Stay out of this, she snapped, her gaze icy as it met mine. Let us keep it calm, Lucas interjected, a pleading note lacing his voice as he turned back to her. Just give me a moment, please. Emma's right here. The clang of reality broke through our temporary reprieve. Emma was listening, taking in the gravity of our abrupt conversation with wide, innocent eyes that brimmed with confusion. Daddy, why does she look so mad? She asked, her small voice like a feather trying to lift the heavy tempest swirling around us. No one's mad, Lucas promised, his voice shaky yet tender as he knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. We're just talking about something important. She replied skeptically, her brows knitting together in a frown. Before anyone could speak again, the woman interjected, Lucas, you need to focus. The meeting about the estate could have serious implications. If you're not there, her words trailed off, leaving a void that pulsed with unspoken threats. Estate? A knot twisted within me, unraveling threads of understanding I thought I held. What estate? Why now? Lucas glanced back at me, desperation evident in his eyes, and I could feel the wall of resolve he was attempting to maintain start to crack again. It's a family matter. It's complicated. Complicated? What does that mean? I pushed, desperation gnawing at me as this sense of dread layered itself over my previous concerns. What do they want from you? Enough. The woman snapped, interrupting the chaos with a finality that swept over us like a gust of ice-cold wind. The last thing we need is for everyone to know about this. It would ruin all the progress. Progress? You mean the progress of hiding everything? I shot back, wronged and feeling a surge of protectiveness over Emma. She didn't deserve to be caught in this whirlwind of secrecy and shadows. Lucas took a deep breath, and from the way his shoulders sagged, I could tell he was battling his own demons. We can't talk about this here, he said finally, urgency lacing his words. Let us hurry and get ice cream, and I'll look. The woman interrupted again, her impatience rearing its head as she pointed toward a sleek black car parked across the street. Do you see that? Do you want them to come here? They're already on to you. My heart pounded fiercely in my chest, as the weight of the situation morphed into something darker and more terrifying. Who asked them? I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and confusion. Lucas aimed to shield Emma from whatever storm was rising, but all I saw was the dawning realization that there were layers to Lucas I had yet to explore, secrets far beneath the surface that tormented him and threatened to drown us all. Showtime, Lucas. We need to go, the woman urged, and the urgency in her voice made my skin crawl. Not without Emma, Lucas asserted, gathering himself rapidly while trying to remain calm for her sake. I reached for Emma's other hand, my instinct to protect her growing stronger. Her gaze darted between Lucas and the woman, sensing the tension thickening. Daddy, what's happening? Nothing we can't handle, sweetheart, he reassured her, forcing a smile. But his eyes betrayed him, dark clouds swirling with dread. Before he could say anything else, a figure emerged from the car, a tall man in a perfectly tailored suit, gaze piercing as he scanned the surroundings, locking in on us. Lucas stiffened, his breath hitching as he exchanged a knowing glance with the woman beside him, one that spoke volumes of treacherous past entanglements and hidden fears. Lucian, the man called, his voice smooth yet predatory, weaving its way through the air like poison. We need to talk. Panic surged in my chest as I held Emma close, the impending confrontation crackling in the atmosphere like electricity, akin to the before-the-storm quiet that carried a promise of chaos. And in that defining moment, I realized that our lives were more intertwined than I had ever imagined. As the man drew closer, I knew without a doubt that everything was about to change and not in a way any of us were prepared for. Would love be strong enough to withstand what was about to unfold? In the deepest corner of my mind, fear wrestled furiously with hope. A silent battle ignited as we stood on the precipice of everything that could either break or bind us together. The silence that followed the man's approach felt suffocating, as if the world around us had simply stopped, holding its breath. Lucas moved closer, instinctively positioning himself between us and the figure exuding power and danger. I could see the pulse in his neck throbbing, a frantic tempo that mirrored the crushing weight of uncertainty settling on us all. "Who is he, Lucas?" I asked, my voice trembling, barely above a whisper. Emma squeezed my hand, her innocent curiosity cutting through my resolve like a flickering candle fighting against the dark. "He's just someone from my past," Lucas replied, his tone tight with suppressed emotion. A shadow crossed his face, one that hinted at burdens he had carried long before Emma had ever come into our lives. "Those burdens are heavy, aren't they?" the man interrupted, cold amusement lacing his words as he took another step forward. "You think you can just walk away, Lucian?" He paused, his eyes flickering toward Emma. "I see you found a new family to play pretend with. How sweet." The pit in my stomach twisted violently at the casual cruelty in his tone. I could feel Emma's small fingers quaking in my grasp, the chill of fear clawing at my spine as I looked down into her trusting gaze, unaware of the shadows gathering around us. "Let us not make this harder than it has to be." Lucas stepped forward, forcing bravado I could sense was hanging by a thread. "I'm doing my best to keep Emma out of this. Just give me a minute, please. Time is something you don't have." The man's voice sliced through the air, each word steeped in menacing certainty. "You should know by now that the past doesn't stay buried forever. The estate is under scrutiny, and it seems someone has taken an interest in its rightful heir." He didn't need to say more, the implications were clear, and they slashed through the fabric of our fragile safety. The woman next to Lucas, brimming with anxiety, shifted her stance, her eyes betraying an understanding I wished I could grasp. "Why now?" Lucas's voice wavered as he tried to maintain clarity amid the chaos unfolding around us. "Can't you see there's nothing for you here?" The man chuckled, a sound that sent chills racing down my spine. "You underestimate how little control you truly have, Lucian. This could all be resolved easily if you just do what's right." "What's right for who?" I interjected, my fear igniting a spark of defiance. "You're threatening our family. You can't expect us to just stay out of it," he shot back, his gaze fixing on me with unsettling intensity. "You don't know what you're meddling with." Lucas turned toward me, desperation etched across his features. I could see the conflict raging inside him, the home he'd built now feeling like a crumbling fortress under siege. With a surge of instinct, I bent down to Emma, locking my gaze with hers. "Hey, sweetheart, let us take a step back. Maybe you can help me see something real quick." I moved her a couple of steps away from the escalating tension, my heart hammering in my chest. "Why do people feel angry, miss?" Emma asked suddenly, her voice a tiny thread of innocence that quivered beneath the storm. "Is it the ice cream?" Warmth flooded through me amid the cold reality surrounding us. "It's not the ice cream, Emma. Sometimes, people feel angry because they're scared or confused. But remember, love can always help us navigate those feelings." I turned back to Lucas and saw him watching me with a mix of gratitude and pain, but only for a fleeting moment. The man had shifted his focus back toward Lucas, who stood firmly, a man holding on to the last vestiges of his resolve. "Love won't save you from the consequences of your choices, Lucian," the man warned, an ominous edge creeping into his voice as he stepped closer once more. "You need to decide if you're going to play this game or if you want to be lost in it forever." At that moment, the air surged with a palpable tension, a collective intake of breath as time seemed to freeze. Lucas's expression hardened, and for a second, I caught a glimpse of the storm. Raging within him, a tempest of fear, loyalty, and regret, an internal battle unfolding under the unforgiving gaze of his past. Emma, listen carefully, Lucas finally said, his voice suddenly steady as he crouched down to her level. No matter what happens, I love you. Always. A sense of foreboding wrapped around me as my heart sank deeper into despair at the words. What was Lucas truly willing to sacrifice for her? As he stood back up, I felt an instinctive tug in my gut, a chilling realization that whatever decision was made today would cast shadows beyond the ice cream shop and into the very fabric of our lives. Trust me, he murmured as he looked at me directly. I know what I'm doing. But the man's scoff echoed through the air, and the creeping dread stoked the flames of uncertainty within me. His scoff morphed into an unsettling laughter, a sound that hinted at deeper layers of darkness yet to unfold. And then, a final bittersweet whisper of hope edged its way through my thoughts. Was this the point where we either stripped our vulnerabilities bare or succumbed to the weight of our own secrets? In that moment, my heart lurched violently as the truth dawned, the threads connecting us were fraying, and in this whirlwind of emotion, one wrong turn could unravel everything we held dear. Just then, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, its happy tone jarring against the tension and startling me. I fumbled for it, a deep, foreboding feeling in my gut. As I lifted it to read the notification, I froze, the words practically jumping off the screen with a sharp edge that sent ice through my veins. Someone knows. As my heart raced, the reality of a new and haunting revelation swept over us like an unforeseen storm, an uninvited participant ready to tear apart the fragile world we fought so hard to preserve. The words hung in the air like a sinister fog, each syllable curling around my mind, leaving little room for escape. The anxious tremor that had been festering in my stomach now morphed into a churning vortex, threatening to swallow me whole. I felt an almost overwhelming urge to glance back at the man in front of us, to see if he had registered the significance of my phone's message. Lucas, a beacon of determination, hadn't moved an inch, but I could see the gears turning behind his eyes as his jaw tightened, the weight of impending choices weighing heavily on his shoulders. Emma stood silently at my side, utterly unaware of the shifting tides, clutching my hand with innocent trust, her eyes wide and searching for answers only an adult could provide. What do you mean someone knows? Lucas's voice was laced with a simmering intensity, a desperate plea for clarity as he searched my expression for answers that were elusive and increasingly terrifying. The man watching us, his face contorted into a serpentine grin, seemed to revel in our visible distress. I thought I made it clear, he began, undeterred, your past is eager to collect its dues, Lucian. And if you're hoping to shield this little family from the truth, well, I have my sources. Each word felt like a barrage of cold water splashed against my skin. The realization crept in, icy tendrils wrapping around my heart. What if our mere existence was now an invitation for chaos? I turned my attention back to the notification, willing it to divulge more, lurking below the surface, an unspoken excuse to shield Emma from the realities lurking in the shadows. Before I could respond, a horn blared unexpectedly from the street outside, jolting our group from momentary paralysis. The sudden noise shattered the tension, a swift reminder that life continued unabated beyond our predicament. But this was no ordinary disruption, it felt like a warning, a herald of a greater storm. Why don't we take a walk? The man suggested, his amusement transforming into something more sinister. After all, conversations are most effective in the open air. Lucas instinctively placed himself between this threat and us, but I felt a pulse of fear. The thought of moving outdoors, where everything felt too exposed, tugged at my survival instincts. Yet I also knew, staying here could lead to deeper threats we couldn't foresee. Emma, I said softly, kneeling down to meet her gaze. Why don't you go play over there for a moment? I pointed toward a nearby patch of grass that still held remnants of sunlight filtering through the trees. Just for a little while. I promise I'll be right here. Her brow furrowed, a flicker of hesitation passing across her face. But I don't want to leave you. I felt a pang in my heart, an ache that reminded me the innocence of childhood should be protected at all costs. You'll be safe, I promised, fighting against the growing anxiety twisting in my gut. You trust me, right? With a slow nod, She reluctantly released my hand and wandered toward the grass, her small form swallowed by the sunlight shining through the trees. I had done my best, but I felt the cruel irony tugging at the corners of my mind. My attempt at shielding her only widened the chasm of uncertainty between us. "Now," the man said, brushing a non-existent speck of dust from his jacket, "let us talk about how to resolve this little situation." Lucas glared at him, his fists clenched at his side, a quiet fury pushing past the boundaries of his control. "You leave Emma out of this." The urgency in his tone danced dangerously with the sparks of anger trying to ignite. "Leave her out?" The man laughed, a low, sinister sound that felt as bitter as frozen steel. "Lucas, she is the centerpiece of this entire unfortunate arrangement. I wouldn't dream of ignoring her." As if on cue, a high-pitched shriek rang out from where Emma had been playing. My heart raced as I whipped around, my eyes scanning desperately for her, only to find her standing still, frozen with fear as a large dog barreled towards her from somewhere nearby. "Emma!" I shouted, panic rushing through me like wildfire. I turned on my heel, ready to rush to her side. "Don't," the man said, a sharp edge creeping back into his voice. "You can't have your cake and eat it too, Lucian. This is exactly how past mistakes resurface." Time fractured around me as I glanced back at the anxious little girl who had just begun to comprehend the weight of fear, watching a joyful moment unravel before her. In that fleeting stretch, I was torn. The compulsion to protect Emma screamed louder than the tug of my own gut feeling to confront the man before me. Then Lucas shifted, his body tightening like a coiled spring. "Get out of my way," he said, and in that instant, I knew he was choosing a side, ready to redefine stakes that had already escalated too far. "You really think this will help your situation?" The man taunted, but Lucas had already surged forward, tearing through the air like it was pure adrenaline. "Get away from her!" Lucas shouted, and in that moment, everything erupted. Emma cried out, the sudden cacophony of panic twisting in my chest as I darted toward her, but I wasn't prepared for the events unfolding before me, the lives surrounding us ready to shatter like glass under the weight of our past. The air felt charged with unspoken truths and dark promises, but all I could focus on was my commitment to Emma. And with that singular clarity, I plunged back into the fray, into a reality laced with betrayal and the bitter taste of hard choices, knowing full well that this was only the beginning. Then, as shadows flickered and reality blurred, a chilling realization swept over me. If this man had the power to shake loose the threads of our lives, what was it that he truly sought, and what unspeakable truth awaited us beneath layers of memories yet to come to light? The chaos erupted around me, a whirlpool of screams and barking that tore through the fragile veneer of normalcy we had built. I could feel Emma's pulse of fear resonating against my soul, each heartbeat magnifying the urgency of the moment. The large dog, its unyielding energy a stark contrast to Emma's stillness, was drawn to her in a tidal wave of clumsy affection that was almost innocent. "Emma! Stand still!" I shouted, but my voice barely broke through the chaos. I had only just taken a few shuffling steps when something honed my instincts, a prickling awareness that no matter how desperately I wanted to control this situation, I was still in the tide of forces beyond my comprehension. Lucas was a furious blur, closing the distance between him and the dog like a comet on a collision course. He quickly wrapped a protective arm around Emma's tiny shoulders, pulling her away from the thundering mass of fur. The dog, thankfully harmless in its exuberance, barked once more before leaping back, disoriented by the sudden shift of energy, yet the man who had cast our lives into upheaval merely stood back, his sinister grin unbroken as he savored our turmoil. "You think this will keep her safe?" he taunted, and I could hear the amusement threading through his words. "This world is more dangerous than you realize, Lucian. Your secrets are like shadows, no matter how far you run, they always trail behind you." Lucas shot him a glare as he knelt beside Emma, gauging her response, and I felt the desperation tugging at my thoughts. I focused on her, running my hands over her arms in a reassured gesture. "You okay, sweetheart?" Her wide eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she nodded, finding her balance in the storm swirling around us. She inhaled, shaky yet determined, as she leaned closer to Lucas, her protector in a moment that should have been painted with joy, not fear. "Why don't we take a step back?" Lucas said, and the surprisingly calm tone of his voice contrasted sharply with the tension around us. The dog, realizing it had become part of a performance much larger than itself, ambled away in search of a more inviting distraction. "Little girl looks shaken," the man observed, his gaze piercing, "and that's just the beginning. You can't shield her from the truths that will come. They'll always catch up." There was a heaviness in the air, a cumulative weight that felt like a fog slowly suffocating us. "What do you want?" I demanded, the bitterness cutting through my fright. My instincts screamed at me, warning me of impending doom while I willed myself to stay grounded, to protect Emma. "Want?" he echoed, tilting his head devilishly. "I want to illuminate the darkness that's buried deep in your past, Lucian. I want to remind you that consequences are waiting just around the corner. Not just for you but for everyone you hold dear." In the next moment, the world around us faded away as something in me longed to tear through the web of words filtering past his lips. "You think terror will force me into compliance?" I spat, steeling my resolve. "I hope you take it as a warning," he replied, his tone softening momentarily, allowing it to hang in the air like a tremor. "I dare say there are those in your past who don't take too kindly to this idyllic little life you're trying to piece together." His words echoed in my chest, igniting memories I had buried long before Emma stepped into my world. I had fought so hard to protect her, to keep the demons of my past at bay. But it seemed that fate had other intentions, pressing down upon us relentlessly. "No more games," Lucas interjected sharply, his anger a fierce barrier between our fragile family and the malevolence looming ahead. "If there is something you want, you speak plainly. No more threats." Yet Lucas's resolve hadn't escaped the man's sharp intellect, his eyes sparkled with cruel delight. "Understand this, dear boy. When it comes to family, everyone plays their part. I can help you pull the strings, or I can be the one to cut them." "Stop this," I shouted, stepping forward, my heart racing as anger spiked within me, demanding a response, even if it wasn't the wise choice. The weight of fearful uncertainty wrapped itself around Emma and Lucas as if seeking to smother our fragile oasis. "Take a look around," the man added, his voice lowering into an unnerving whisper. "Your efforts to shield the innocent are commendable. But I wonder when the time comes, how will you choose to save them? Because when those hidden truths float to the surface, they'll lay waste to everything you know." As he stepped back into the shadows, enigmatic and malevolent, a gnawing anxiety took root in my heart. What secret lay buried within my past, and what would it cost me? Taking a deep breath, I knelt beside Emma again, wrapping my arms around her small frame. "Let us go home," I whispered, my voice low and assuring, though within me, a hurricane brewed, threatening to unleash everything I had worked to keep hidden. But as I turned to lead them away from this confrontation, another presence lingered at the periphery, a new figure emerging from the shadows, one I had not anticipated. A woman, her silhouette defined against the light, her face obscured by the fading sun, but her eyes burned with recognition, and as they locked onto mine, I felt the ground beneath me shift. A shocking realization surged through me: she knew me. She knew our history. "Lucian," she called softly, and a chill skittered down my spine. "We need to talk." The weight of the unseen world crashed down again, threatening to drown us in unknown depths. Time twisted around us, pulling taut as the stakes continued to rise far beyond what I had imagined. The shadows lengthened, a creeping cold seeping into the air as the woman's voice pierced through the tension, resonating deep within me. "Lucian, we need to talk." Each syllable danced along the edge of familiarity, yet it felt like a poison I had long since tried to purge from my life. Emma fidgeted at my side, the innocence of her small frame seemingly oblivious to the brewing storm surrounding us. Her wide eyes darted from me to Lucas and back, seeking assurance that all was well, yet caught between worlds I desperately wished to shield her from. "Who are you?" I managed to rasp, the question barely departing my lips before I felt its weight. The stranger's appearance was jarring, thrusting open old wounds I had swathed in silence. I couldn't recognize the face that lingered within my memory, and yet, it felt like a ghost had returned to haunt me. She stepped into the light, a young woman, perhaps in her late 20s, with an air that suggested she had seen the darker shades of life, marked by both tenacity and vulnerability. Her hair, a cascade of chestnut waves, caught the dying sunlight, framing features that conjured an unsettling sense of familiarity. "You were supposed to forget," she added, the tremor in her voice betraying a deeper fear. "Forget? What do you want from me?" I demanded, each word laced with the rawness of years spent trying to build a life free from the thorns of the past. The world around me receded, leaving just the two of us suspended in recognition and confusion, while Lucas knelt beside Emma, shielding her from the chaos. "Please," she said, her expression merging defiance with desperation, "there's so much you don't know about what's coming, Lucian. I'm not here to hurt you. I only want to help." I studied her, searching for truth in her piercing gaze, but all that reflected back was a landscape soaked in uncertainty. "Help? Is that what you call it?" I scoffed, pressing my lips together in defiance. "After all these years, you decide to just appear. Because I didn't know how." Her voice cracked a vulnerability that spoke of burdens heavier than my own. "I thought staying away would protect you. But they're coming for your family, and time is running out." "Who's coming?" I shot back, edging closer, the adrenaline coursing through me as dread tangled with the hope she offered. "What do you mean?" Before she could respond, the man, now somehow a greater danger, an ever-present ghost, reappeared, a predator circling his prey with a sinister grin. "Oh, don't you see, Lucian? The past is only the prelude, and it's far more complicated than you can fathom." The woman's resolve stiffened at his presence. "You don't have to listen to him," she urged, her words threading a fragile path between us as if she could tether our realities together. "He thrives in your fear. That's why I'm here to help you break free." "Enough," I spat, anger igniting at the juxtaposition of our worlds colliding into one another, threatening to snuff out the light I'd tried to build for Emma. "Do not drag her into this. No more games." As despair swirled in the undercurrents, Lucas finally rose, pressing his hand against Emma's shoulder as if the gravity of the moment was too much for her tiny frame to hold. "What do you know about my brother's past?" he asked the woman, his voice steady yet entangled in the tremors of anxiety, for we all sensed the stakes had risen beyond immediate fears. This was about more than survival. She glanced back at him, her cheeks flushing with memories she seemed unwilling to share. "It's complicated, but the connections are tighter than you think. You're not just fighting for Lucian. You're fighting for the entire family." "What do you mean?" I whispered, dread coiling within my gut, twisting tighter like a vine seeking to suffocate the life I had almost grasped. "Your father, he made choices," she continued, her voice trembling as she reached for the words. "Choices that built walls between you and everything you wanted. He set off a chain reaction, and it's coming back to haunt you, Lucian. You're all caught in it." My heart plunged into an abyss of uncertainty. "What are you saying?" I'd fought so hard to create a sanctuary, to shield Emma from the tempest I thought I had outrun, yet here it loomed before me like an indomitable force. "They want revenge. They want the past to bleed into your future until everything is lost. And I'm here to warn you before it becomes irreversible." Her eyes glistened with an earnestness I couldn't ignore, yet doubt gnawed at my heart. "Revenge?" Lucas echoed, his face a tapestry of shock and fury. "Who are they?" Before she could answer, a vibrating silence fell upon us, an ominous herald that sent ripples of dread through our bodies. The sun dipped further, casting an unsettling gloom upon our surroundings as realization flickered through me, the edges of her warning uncoiling in my mind like smoke spiraling into the night, and then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed, ominous and purposeful, a swarm moving toward us with malevolent intent. The air crackled with tension, warning us that choices made lingered too long, and we stood at the precipice of a truth that threatened to engulf us all. "Run!" I roared, instinctively grasping Emma's hand tight as I propelled Lucas and her away, heart racing as dread settled into my bones. The woman's presence flickered in my periphery, an unfinished sentence hanging in the air, a silent promise or a foreboding tale yet to unfold. A new reality braced for impact, one that demanded discovery, but would it lead us to safety, or unravel all I had ever held dear? I didn't stop running, the sound of hurried footsteps echoing behind us like a haunting drumbeat, urging me forward. Emma's small hand was wrapped tightly in mine, her slender fingers trembling, and I fought to steady my own pulse as I balanced urgency with the delicate task of shielding her from panic. It was a thin line to walk, but I would do anything for her. "Lucas! Stay close!" I shouted, my voice breaking through the chaos. He fell in line beside us, the weight of his earlier bravery condensed into a palpable fear. The warmth of our little family unit felt fragile, like a threadbare tapestry that could unravel at any moment. As we darted around a corner, I glanced back to see the shadow's figures closing in with haste, intent on erasing whatever semblance of safety we deconstructed. We fled through the twists and turns of the town, racing past familiar landmarks that now felt tinted with threat. I could hardly think straight. The warnings from that woman mixed trepidation with clarity. The tangled past of Lucas's family loomed like a dark cloud, threatening to obscure the light of our carefully pieced-together lives. "Where are we going?" Emma asked, her voice small and unsure, pulling at the threads of my resolve. I crouched down, bringing my face close to hers, searching for the right words that would convey both comfort and strength. "We're going to a safe place," I whispered, forcing a brave smile. "Somewhere we can think." She nodded, but I could see the worry etched deep in her blue eyes that mirrored not only Lucas's but the innocence I so desperately wanted to protect. Once we reached a secluded park with dense trees offering a natural barrier against unwanted eyes, we slowed down, panting and gasping for breath. Lucas's voice caught up with us as he struggled to process everything. "We need to figure out what that woman meant. Who is coming for us? What leverage do they have?" "I don't know, Lucas," I said softly, bringing Emma close to me. My heart ached for him, for all of us. But we need to protect Emma above all. If they have any connection to your father or past, we can't let them find her. Lucas looked conflicted, torn between his protective instincts and the looming shadow of his family's legacy. "But this is my past, not hers," he said fiercely. "I won't let anything that happened to me touch her." I glanced at Emma, who was now hugging her knees to her chest, wide-eyed and alert, listening intently to our conversation. "You're right," I said, keeping my voice low. "But if we don't confront it, it might lurk over us like a dark cloud forever, threatening to explode. Ignoring it isn't an option anymore." Lucas's gaze softened slightly, but his determination hardened. "Then we prepare," he said with resolve, though I saw a glimmer of fear hidden within his steadiness. "I'll find out what they want. I'll protect you both." As resolve washed over him, the remnants of doubt that had crept into my heart began to diminish. In unity, we could unveil the truth, reveal the connective strings that bound us to dangers yet unseen. And just as that flicker of hope ignited within me, Emma spoke. "Can we get ice cream now?" she asked, her voice cutting through the darkness with sweet innocence, drawing smiles from both Lucas and me. At that moment, I realized something profound. In this fragile little girl, there was a strength and unwavering light, and it was our duty to protect that light at all costs. She was the thread connecting our hearts, our fates, and perhaps the key to healing what seemed irreparably fractured. "Yes, sweet girl," I said, nearly breathless with renewed determination. "Once we understand what is happening, we'll get ice cream. Deal?" "Deal." Emma beamed, her innocence washing over us like soothing rain. Lucas stood there, momentarily lost in thought, his eyes narrowing as if piecing together something significant. "There has to be a link to my family, the estate." His voice trailed off, and I could see his mind racing, calculating danger, connecting dots with memories long forgotten. My family dealt in secrets, ones I've tried to untangle since I left. But whatever this is, it's bigger than I thought. Lucas's voice shook, the burden of his past heavier than any I could hold aloft. And it's spreading into our future with Emma in its sights. The weariness in his expression stirred my heart, and I knew we needed to lean on one another. We may not have answers yet, but together we could face whatever shadows surfaced. Then we'll face it together, I promised, squeezing Emma's hand tighter. We won't let it fragment what we've just begun to build. Just then, a quiet breath of wind glided through the air, carrying a whisper of strength. The shadows and their looming threats might not be vanquished, but we were determined to carve out our own path, one that held the promise of hope amidst turmoil. And then I saw them, a handful of figures emerging ahead, a group of people coming into view, seemingly bound by tension yet radiating a sense of purpose. With their eyes set on us, everything shifted again, worlds colliding as curiosity drew us closer. Lucian. The woman from earlier broke through the throng, relief lighting her features. We need to move. There's no time. My heart raced anew as Lucas and I exchanged glances. It was all coming to a head, choice and chance hanging in the balance. Just then, as we hurried toward them, a blinding light framed the horizon, illuminating the way. And despite the storm brewing around us, despite the shadows that loomed large, I could feel that flicker of possibility, of survival and creation pushing us forward into the unknown. Hold on, I murmured to both of them, my heart surging with conviction, because whatever lies ahead, we're facing it as a family. In that moment, we were more than just survivors of our journeys, we became a team forged in love, a beautiful unit ready to take on whatever came next. And as we stepped into the uncertain light, gripped tightly by resolve and hope, I felt the weight lift ever so slightly, just enough for possibility to take root, a promise of a future intertwined. Together, we would weave truth from the threads of our lives, transforming shadows into the fabric of who we truly were. And maybe, just maybe, we could learn to embrace whatever family meant when it wasn't stained by the past, but rather heightened through love's existence. As the sun cast endless shadows behind us, I knew with absolute clarity that no matter what thunderclouds gathered ahead, love would always find its way home.